What's up, branding experts? Arek here at Ebaqdesign, and welcome to On Branding Podcast. And my guest today is Marek Dvornechuck. And over the past 15 plus years, he has built a multi-million-dollar creative agency, Fanta Media. So Mark has helped launch numerous startups and produce national television campaigns and transform international brands, and has won many awards in the process. And today, Mark just wants to share with us some of his secret formula for creating brands. Hello, Mark. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, the secret formula, like what, Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? You got to add your little spices and your little mixture, right?
Yeah, every branding expert know there are so many tools and techniques out there, so we have different. We use them differently, right? You have your own process, so you structured your process around three areas, right? Brand amplifier, experience amplifier, and content amplifier. So I would like you to just give us an overview of those three areas. So starting with brand amplifier, what it is, what it stands for, and how to start, creating or either a brand from scratch or working on an existing brand to, amplify that brand.
Yeah, well, listen, I've been listening to your podcast for a while, and so often there's a common language, as you've mentioned. If we're talking about brand positioning, if we're talking about brand strategy, if we're talking about brand identity, ultimately everyone is going to arrive at the same thing. So for us, really about the amplification side of things. In my experience, everybody hits a certain glass ceiling with their brand. When you're starting, and if you're a startup, or if you're launching a new product, you're launching a new service, you're doing something brand new, very few people out of the gate do everything they need to do to be able to create their brand. They want sales, they want a website, they want tactics, they want leads, they want to launch something. Like, you got to get your beta out, you got to do something. And so often those we're working with, the entrepreneurs, the consultants, the coaches, the speakers, they have started, and then you hit the glass ceiling. And when you hit that glass ceiling, you suddenly start to realize that the way you look, the way you feel, what you say, how you show up is holding you back. You're hitting that next level. And so for us, brand amplification is really just about looking as good as you really are. You have an amazing product. You have an amazing service. You have a ton of experience. But on either the personal branding side or the corporate side, it just gets so messy and muddled. So what we do is our process really focuses on helping people discover exactly who they are and who they need to be. It helps distill down to the elements that matter most, because sure, your experience is important, but is it important for this initiative, this product, this service, this customer? Sure, you've been able to have these features and benefits, but do they matter at this moment, at this time, for this customer, for this product, what have you? So we discover everything, we distill down to the core elements that matter the most, and then we work through defining who you are, who your audiences are, what do they care about, what are their fears, their desires, what are their dreams, how will you help them, what's your competition doing, what aren't they doing, how will you stand out, and really, again, look as good as you really are. Because in my experience, most people are much better than they look. Very rarely, sometimes scammers are the other way. They look amazing and they're full of kind of garbage. But for the most part, real businesses, real people, real entrepreneurs, real services, they're so much better than they look.
I agree, definitely. I can see that, there are so many startups, small brands who just have a great product or offer a great service, but their branding sucks and they don't really know what to do to make a sense of it. It's kind of like all over the place. As you said, messy. Often it looks messy and cluttered, whatever it is, when it comes to visuals or the verbal identity, right? Both. So can you break this down for us? So basically the first area is brand amplification, right? And here you mentioned things like, finding your audience, doing some competitive research. So can you just break this down? Or maybe you can give us some examples or, common misconceptions or the common mistakes that people make in this first step when it comes to, defining your audience or researching your competitors.
Yeah, great question. So on the branding side, we have a process called Core 3. So I don't know about you, but I love. There's a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, and he's this like ex-Navy SEAL, and he co-wrote it with a friend named Les Babin. But in their book, these Navy SEALs, these hardcore Navy SEALs guys, have this saying where they say the
I think he was on your podcast, right?
I've had a bunch of Navy SEALs on the podcast, but we've not quite had Jocko.
Or it was another Navy SEAL. Okay.
Yeah, but
okay, cool.
But Jocko writes in Extreme Ownership. He says that the Navy SEALs say that the enemy always has a vote, and you're going off to battle. You're a soldier. You're in the theaters of war. You could have the greatest plan in the world, but the enemy always has a vote. They always have a say in how things go down. And so when you're talking about the branding process, whether it's a personal brand, a startup brand, no matter the size of the brand, often we think that we have the only say, we have the only vote, right? Like we have a plan, we have a strategy, we know what we want to say and what we want to be and all of that stuff. But guess what? Just like in war, the enemy has a vote. In business and branding and marketing and strategy, there's actually two people that have a vote. There's not only you, your customers have a vote, and your competition or the marketplace, they have a vote too. And so our Core 3 process on the branding side, on the amplification side, our Core 3 process focuses on 3 core elements, 3 pillars. First, you. What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your desires? What do you hope to accomplish? What's your vision? What's your voice? What's your perspective? What's your experience? What is it that you bring to the table that's unique? Everything about you, your purpose, your drive, your values. And often businesses, entrepreneurs, small enterprise level people, personal brands, nobody spends enough time figuring that out. Right? They have fuzzy ideas of what they could be and where it could go and how it could look and all of these fuzzy ideas, but they're just not specific enough. And so you have to really crystallize and really understand what it is you want to accomplish and really put a fence around that and really define that. Because the next step, which is, as you mentioned, your audience side, that's the next step. You always need to understand who your audience is. But so much of what you want to accomplish and what you want to achieve dictates the very audience, the very channels, the very places you're going to go and speak to them. And so the second step is an extreme amount of customer research. So it's not enough just to come up with fuzzy personas, Sally Sue and Debbie, the 30-year-old and this and that. It's all generic. It's all whatever. You have to get really specific. Our process allows for, but many people can do this. We have access to market research. We're able to track, but get research on 250 million Americans, on a billion devices across 1 trillion daily data touch. Today, this month, this year, when you're listening to this, we have access to more customer insight than we've ever had in the history of the world. We can find which social channels people are following and what do they listen to and where do they go and what are the audience overlaps and what do people care about most. We can go through communities like Reddit and we can look at common questions, common posts, common answers. We can look at articles that people are writing and YouTube videos and get a sense of everything that our audience wants and desires without having to do like, let's sit down in a room and ask you a bunch of market research questions. We don't have to do that. We have access to all of this data. And so we can really, really quickly figure out what it is people want to hear from you and who you need to be. And so, again, number 1 is you. Number 2 is the audience. Number 3 is the market or the competition. We have so much competitive intel. We have so much data that we can pull. Whether you're going to Facebook and looking at through page transparency, through their ad transparency, whether you're looking at the ads that your competitors are running and the messages that they're using, whether you're scraping followers and customer overlap, whether you're looking at the technology stacks that they're using to figure out how they're building stuff. There's so, like, even secret shopping. Yeah. There's so much you can do to determine what your customers or your competitors are doing. And once you know who you are, and once you know what your audience or your customers are looking for in terms of the message and how you need to show up, and once you understand what your competition is or is not doing, in the overlap, in the center of that Venn diagram of those 3 areas, what you have is a positioning and an approach that is 100% unique to you. It's unique to who you are. It's saying and showing up the way your audience needs you to show up, or your customers need you to show up as, and it's showing up in a way that your competition is not showing up, which means you can stand out and be different.
Right. No, that's these are some of the fundamental great tips. Just to sum up for our listeners, I have some of key takeaways from this part. So at the beginning, you mentioned that startups often hit a glass ceiling, right? So they start with a product and service, they put some branding together, usually really fast, but then a certain so they just hit a glass ceiling. They don't know what to do. Yeah, no, comes from the fact that they haven't invested time and money in proper research or strategy, so they are not clear about their brand. They don't have this clarity. That's why you would recommend to dive deep, as you mentioned, into figuring out who your audience is specifically and what they want and so on. Who are your competitors? As you gave us examples, what kind of technologies they use, what kind of messaging they use, and so on. So my key takeaway from this part would be to just don't underestimate the power of research and strategy, right? So whether it is a startup or small business or mid-sized business, proper research and strategy is crucial okay, so let's move on and talk about the second area. So amplifying the experience, right? So here you talk about things like event branding, MC and hosting, pre-event social clips, event production. So can you talk to us a bit about what you do at Fanta Media and how you can help brands amplify this experience?
Well, for sure. And here's the real secret. I started my Fanta Media, my agency, in 2006. So for over 15 years now, I've been running this. And whether you're doing a branding exercise, or you're amplifying an experience, live event, training, coaching, award shows, whatever it might be, or you're amplifying your content, your content marketing, advertising campaigns, it's all the same process. We've produced over $13 million in creative content over the last number of years using this exact same process every single time, regardless of how it goes. And the reason why we've developed this really, really tight approach that focuses on you, that focuses on your audience, that focuses on the competition or the market, is because it's the same steps no matter what you're producing. So if we looked at a live event, we could look at a live event where it's like, hey, we need ticket sales. We need to get people into this event. How do we go ahead and jam this event full of people? Well, that's an advertising campaign or a marketing campaign like any other challenge. So do we brand the event? What do we want to achieve? What are our customers or our audience looking for? What are our competition doing in the marketplace? And how are we going to stand out and be different? If we're talking about actually the hosting of the event and the conversations or the speakers or the MC or the prizes or the round tables or whatever it might be, okay, let's look at that. What do we want to accomplish in this hour, in this keynote, in this section? Who is in the audience and what is it that they want to do? And what's the context of the people who spoke before and the people who spoke after? And you're right, there's no competition here, but there is an environment and what's going to happen in that room and what's going to happen on the live call and what's going to happen in terms of how we're going to stand out and hit the point home and make that connection for people. And if we're looking at the content amplification side, if this is a podcast like your podcast, you got to think about what you want to speak about and achieve. What's the message you want to get across? How do you want to show up? Who is your audience? What do they care about? What are the other podcasters doing? How are you going to stand out? What are you going to do to be different? It's the same process regardless if we're creating a can't ignore brand, or we're creating a book launch, or we're creating a new funnel specifically to get people to buy the MVP of our latest product, or we're trying to sell more downloads or get more downloads for our new app. It is the same process time and time again. You start with you. Then you understand the audience. Then you understand the environment, the marketplace, or the competition. And once you go through those same steps, and we've done this thousands and thousands of times, you get really good at it, but you start to realize that regardless of the project or the medium, it's always the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's always the same process regarding, what you do, right? Because ultimately, the process is, the framework can be applied to different things, right? To different kind of businesses. So, and then the third area is content amplifier, right? So, let's talk about this a bit. So, you already started talking about this, things like creative videos. We can leverage podcasts, live events, YouTube series, digital ad campaigns, webinars, courses, and stuff like that. So, which one of those, where do you see the most potential here? Maybe, people, I assume people want to know which one is the best to start with, or requires the least effort or the least amount of, money investment or time investment
Yeah,
even?
I love that question because we get asked that question all the time, right? As marketers, we're always going to be asked, should I invest in video, or should I build new landing pages, or should I start an email marketing campaign, or what should I do?
Right.
What's the biggest
Where
impact,
to start?
lowest cost thing we can do? And the question back always has to be the same. What do you want? What do you want to accomplish? Right? Like is video really, really great? It's a great medium. Podcasting is awesome. YouTube series for should you launch a webinar or course? Digital ad campaigns? I don't know. Of course, maybe, yeah, no. Email marketing, like any tactic, which is when we move from a top level brand down to like content creation, advertising, marketing. These are tactics. A tactic has to be the right tactic based off of your goal, your objective. So what do you want to do? Like if we came up with a case study or scenario, we could right size this, but often we go like, I need a Facebook campaign, or I hear Facebook is terrible now because you can't do interest targeting. So we need to actually go over to YouTube, or I really need to launch this thing, or should I be on ClickFunnels, or should I build something on WordPress? Like all of those things are great tactical questions, but the real thing to ask is like, what do you want? And once we know what you want, then we can come up with a plan on the most effective or cost effective or fastest or most impressive, whatever results or KPIs we'll use to measure success. But you have to always start with what do you.
Right. No, that's super important. I totally agree with that. So basically, the takeaway for you guys, for our listeners, is that there are different tactics, but instead of starting with a tactic in mind, like hey, maybe email marketing, or maybe I need to run ads on Facebook, you should really start with the plan, with the strategy. Think about your goals and then go from there, because these are, at the end of the day, these are tactics and you can use them successfully, but you need to first have a bigger picture in mind, and then you can pick the right tactic that will help you, achieve those goals faster, or with the least amount of effort, or the least amount of investment upfront. So, so that's about it. That's an overview of what you offer at Phantom Media. Just for people who want to learn more from you and connect with, of course, I'm going to link to your website, phanta.com, PHANTA.com. But is there any other way you want people to reach out to you on social media?
Well, for sure. I love to connect with listeners. So if you want to head over to Instagram, you can connect with me, follow me, drop me a DM, Mark Drager. It's Drage. If you want to learn more about our processes, you can head over to phanta.com, or you can check out any of the other content that we do on our podcast or other things. But I just want to thank you for having me. I think this is an important topic because, as you mentioned, we all want to jump into the tactics, right? Like, how can we go? But there is a place for setting up a plan, so that way you make sure that you're off running 1,000,000 miles an hour in the wrong direction, especially when it comes to things that you're spending money on. If you're spending daily ads,
100%.
If you're hiring employees and they're just sitting on their hands, if you have a sales team that can't connect, can't sell, you're not closing anything, you're spending money. The tap is open. You're spending money every single day. So before you start spending that daily spend, put together a bit of a plan and make sure that you're really strategic with what you're doing.
Right. And ultimately, you're on the right path.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much. And if you can share some socials or whatever, we'll also post to it or link to it as well.
So that's it. I'm going to link to your website. Thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your tips. And I'm going to link to your website, of course. And you guys can reach out to Mark on social media, preferably on Instagram. I'm going to link to your Instagram as well. So thanks again. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, man. Have an amazing day. Bye.